I become nothing. I stand alone, isolated, as if I no longer exist. I'm still here, I said. No answer. Feelings come in waves. Looking out over the sage-covered hills to the west of the mountains, at the foot of the massive volcanic peak that dominated the horizon, I could feel the morning sun promising another sultry day. The smell of damp earth and rotting plants was replaced by the pungent scent of sage. As the sun rose higher, the volcanic rock seemed to take on a metallic tinge with a minty flavor. I left the agreed landing site 2 days ago. According to my calculations, that means it's another 5 days' journey to base camp. It's hard to say for sure. The recent past has become a blur, like the horizon at the end of this desert valley. I knew it was there, but I couldn't see it clearly. I evaluated my situation, weighed my options. I tried to think soberly, critically. I wish I was somewhere else, but the situation remains the same. I'm stuck. It took time to let go of the heavy thoughts. Doubt gradually crept in. I analyzed again and again my decision to abandon the planned landing. I was plagued by doubts about the safety of the area. Something was wrong. The danger was real. Andy disappeared on the 3rd day. They're leaving base camp the same day. The helicopter was supposed to pick us up. I didn't see it happen. We were descending the eastern slope of Ghost Tooth Mountain, heading toward the rock formation known as Snake Ridge. He fell from a height of about 30 feet, hitting it hard. I heard the sound and cautiously went to see what happened. The dead have a look of their own. It's a look that, no matter how many times you see it, always makes you stop and gaze in anticipation. You freeze, hold your breath. The silence, as always, was special. The dead man had that look in his eyes. A familiar sight. I'd never been close to Andy. It didn't matter now. He was gone. My feelings about his death were complicated. I felt sorry for him, but at the same time, it was something distant. I didn't miss him or grieve for him in any real way. What to do with his body? I decided to leave him and move on, looking for a way out. It didn't lead me anywhere. 5 days ago, we checked our gear, locked the truck, and put on our backpacks. The plan was simple. Head east from base camp, over the crest of Ghost Fang Mountain. Andy said our target was an abandoned turn-of-the-century gold mine on the eastern slope. We were to find it, map it, and assess its economic potential. I'd figure something out. I didn't know Andy before this trip. We were both hired by a Canadian mining company, and we happened to be on the same exploration team. It was just a job that came in handy. I have an acquaintance at the Engineers Corporation, Andy said as we got ready. They regularly fly a helicopter between Finnis Creek and their work site, which is a few miles north of Snake Ridge. They'll be looking for us closer to the evening of the 25th. We should be out of the foothills and ready to evacuate in the valley east of the ridge. That will save us time on the return trip. The climb up the western slope and across the ridge were uneventful, although there were more rattlesnakes than I would have liked. We had to watch our feet carefully, and every step was carefully considered. We reached the summit and began the survey, moving down the sloping wide arcs along the contours of the mountain. By the evening of the 2nd day after leaving camp, we came across a small mine hidden in the volcanic rock among sage and tumbleweed. Andy was in high spirits. Dusk had changed to darkness. Our old AM radio had trouble picking up a signal, but that night we were high enough to catch the occasional news bulletin. We heard about an assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan in Washington, D.C. To me it was just news, nothing special. Andy, on the other hand, seemed frozen, stunned by what he heard. The signal was gone, replaced by interference. Andy tried to tune the receiver, but was unsuccessful. The 6th day on the way from the base camp, running low on water. I had Andy's flask now, which helped, but food was getting scarce, and the heat of the day was unbearable. I could have gone east across the valley at least 30 miles, if I'd risked it to the highly guarded perimeter of the Nevada proving grounds. I would have been spotted there, more likely to be shot than rescued, though. Those guys don't mess around. I could go south, but I'd estimate the nearest habitation to be within 30 miles. Or I could go back west to Ghost Fang Ridge. Cooler there, perhaps, but there was a steep, sometimes dangerous climb ahead. And then what? Something about my decision to leave the landing zone kept bugging me. I replayed it over and over in my head. Andy's reaction to finding the abandoned mine now seemed odd. The more I thought about it, the more I noticed suspicious details about the job. I was glad to be away from that place. I started to shake. My head was splitting. My breathing became rapid and my pulse quickened. I urgently needed shade, but there was none in the valley. I turned west and started climbing up the mountains. I could see vegetation higher up the slope, but it was difficult to estimate distance. I deliberately slowed my breathing, calming myself down. Each step was difficult, but I kept going, one step at a time. That's it. The volcanic debris was sharp and unstable. I stumbled, slipped, and twisted my ankle on this shifting scrabble. Finally, I reached a few medium-sized boulders, looked around for rattlesnakes and other threats. Nothing. I curled up on the sparse, shady side of the largest rock I found. The relief was immediate, but brief. This was my paradise. I dozed off. When I woke up, the sun was already setting. Half my body was in the sun again. I crawled into a narrow strip of shadow, and suddenly, thuds, a clatter, helicopter. I looked out from behind the rock that sheltered me and saw him flying slowly south along the base of the ridge. He was obviously looking for something, maybe me. A strong urge to hide arose. I didn't want them to find me. He flew past my hiding place without slowing down. After a few minutes, it disappeared from sight, and the sound died down. I was relieved. 5, 6 days, 7 to go. It must have been at least 7, because I was sure I'd spent at least one night on the slope after the helicopter had flown by. He was after me. I knew it for a fact. The attempted assassination of Reagan, Andy's excitement at finding the mine, the way he talked about the helicopter that was supposed to pick us up. It all added up to a strange pattern. There were patterns, and they worried me. The first night after leaving base camp, Andy suddenly said that communism was not a threat. He criticized the Reagan doctrine, which was clearly anti-communist. I wasn't interested, but Andy seemed tense, obsessed. Could they think I killed Andy? Why am I running away? Why leave his body behind? Is that why they were after me? Maybe they'd already found him. It was late morning. I walked slowly and cautiously up the slope. The sun was still beating like a hammer, but I imagined a coolness ahead, and then a momentary burst of hope. A green oasis, lush and vibrant, at the foot of the hills that rose above the scorched hollow, and then it was gone. That's when I decided. I need to go back to that mysterious mine we found a few days ago. I had a compass, a map, and some snack mix, but most of all, I needed water and shelter from the merciless sun. My plan was to climb higher, and then turn north. Although the terrain became more difficult, there was a better chance of finding shade among the rocks and ledges, especially in the midday heat. I moved slowly, deliberately, scrutinizing each step and the surrounding land. The desert is beautiful. It is harsh and ruthless, sharp and angular. Most things here can hurt in one way or another. One step at a time. Suddenly I was overcome with chills and then feverish heat. I realized it was heat shock, but I wasn't going to give up. I lay down, covered my head with whatever I could, and fell asleep. 8 days. I heard helicopters. There were a lot of them, looking for me. They were looking for me. But why did they want me? I didn't want them to find me. The sounds faded away, dissolving into my nightmares. I was glad I'd slipped away. Night came, and the long-awaited chill was replaced by a freezing cold. I had to move, or I would freeze. I couldn't survive here at nature's expense. On the contrary, it was waiting to prey on me. Now everything was becoming clear. There, beyond the deserted pool, was the atomic test site, and just beyond it was Area 51. Not that far away. It's not that far. Reagan was said to have met with aliens there and made policy on their advice. Of course, the assassination attempt was staged. Despite his statesmanlike rhetoric, he was close to the Hollywood elite who sympathized with the communists. He was brainwashed. He was being manipulated by those who wanted to destroy the Republic. What kind of movie was it? Manchurian Candidate. That's right. That's it. That's Reagan. It all makes sense now. But where did Andy and his company fit in? What was in that mine? They came expecting to find a body. Only they thought it would be mine, not Andy's. Now they were after me. A week or two ago, I was in Vegas enjoying a free breakfast at a swanky air-conditioned casino. And the drinks were free too, as long as I kept gambling. Scrambled eggs, greasy sausages, strong black coffee, Danish rolls, fried potatoes, strawberries and cream. All you could eat. You should have eaten more. I won, too. I made almost 10 grand in the first few minutes. But then I lost it, and more in the next 4 hours. The people around me were laughing, but I could see their unhappiness. Fear, like garbage, gathered around them. Desire drove them forward. Everything they won, they lost again. But not me. I was smarter than that. I controlled my desires. I was calm. Bullshit, of course. I laughed. Pure self-delusion. Sage, dust, a pungent metallic tang in the air. The sun had risen. I stood up abruptly. Seemed to be heading north. Luck is what it was, as I collapsed to my knees in front of the wooden entrance to the mine. The shade. A chill. I looked around cautiously. This is a great place for a rattlesnake. But it was clear. I stepped inside. I knew I had a flashlight, but where was my backpack? It was gone. I moved forward by feel. When the faint light from the entrance almost disappeared behind the dark shadows, I spotted the old dynamite. Very dangerous. Crystallized, volatile, unpredictable. I immediately turned around and headed back toward the exit, enjoying the coolness of the shadows. Day 9. I was exhausted from hunger and thirst, but for a moment my mind cleared. What was I supposed to do now? I had to tell someone the truth. They must know about the aliens. Nearly 300 miles southeast, a team of law enforcement professionals gathered in Las Vegas. LeBron Dustin led the mission. Make no mistake, LeBron said. We are hunting an extremely dangerous man. Kevin Robinson, political anarchist and charismatic psychopath, added Beatrice Lober, a criminal psychologist. Hallucinations, paranoia, lives in a delusional world, loves conspiracy theories. He escaped from a psychiatric prison 10 days ago. Last seen here in Las Vegas. We have 2 leads, LeBron continued. The first is the murder at the Sapphire Sky, the new casino on the Strip. 1 neat stabbing right through the heart. Victim was found in a laundry cart next to the breakfast buffet. No ID. It's Robinson's work, Beatrice remarked. He has a well-funded group of followers. LeBron continued. Second lead. 6 days ago, someone tried to hijack a helicopter from a private charter company in Finniss Creek. He pointed to the map with a laser pointer. The owner caught him and beat him badly. He was taken to Las Vegas, Beatrice said. When he was finally questioned, he mentioned that he knew Robinson. We were called in right away. Our suspect reported that he intended to pull Robinson out of a desert pool somewhere in this area. LeBron pointed to the area east of the Ghost Fang Mountains, below Snake Ridge. Now I heard helicopters everywhere, all the time. When I saw one, I'd freeze and try to hide as best I could. It got harder. My head was empty. There were no people. I was hungry. I trudged northward, convinced that the clue, what was it, was the adit that Andy was so worried about. I didn't know why exactly. Maybe it was just something to think about, because everything else didn't make sense. I prayed for clouds, but the sky was cloudless, bright blue and blinding. The sun was scorching mercilessly. It was killing me. 9 days. 10. The thirst had become torture. The terrain had changed. Shallow ravines with sharp ridges. I knew I was not far from the adit. The helicopters were very close by. I crawled up to the ledge and peered out. There were 2 helicopters at the bottom of the range. The men were clumsily lowering a body bag down the slope. They had found Andy. They had food and water. I needed the same thing immediately. But were they working for Reagan? Would they hand me over to the aliens? If so, I was doomed. I decided to retreat and hide until they were gone. Hey, I heard a voice behind me. Let's get you out of the sun. Okay. Lucky guy, Lebron said. Not many people survive 10 days in the desert, or after meeting Kevin Robinson, Beatrice added. The body has been identified. They spent only a few minutes with an exhausted survivor who was on the verge of death. He was too weak to say much. What about the aliens? Lebron asked. Hallucinations, Beatrice replied. Heat stroke. One helicopter soared into the sky with Robinson's body, a second with a lucky survivor, and a third circled the area, waiting its turn to land. We found guns in the attic, Lebron said. You know what's weird? It looks like they were going to kill Reagan. That's so, replied Beatrice. Well, it's a little late, isn't it? It was cooler now, and I was no longer thirsty. I dreamed of a big, juicy steak with mashed potatoes and gravy. But whatever they gave me in return seemed unbelievable at the time. I swallowed it all. Hospital food. I was so hungry. The light was too bright, and there was too much noise around. I wanted to sleep, and also, I was clean. I hadn't realized before how wonderful it was to be clean. No aliens yet. Pretty sure of that, though. There were scraps of conversation coming from the hallway. A serious man, obviously important, was talking to someone, and I caught glimpses of him glancing in my direction through the door. Lucky he survived it all, said someone I couldn't see. He doesn't have any papers on him, the important man said. Fluids, hallucinations, muttered the first one. We tracked Robinson's group to a shell company that was masquerading as a mining firm from Canada, Lebron explained. They spotted this guy at the casino. He seemed to know the area and had to make sure Robinson made it safely over the mountains, so they wanted to get rid of him. Beatrice clarified. UHR, Lebron confirmed. Planned on the landing site. Muffled voices again, as if murmuring in the distance. I noticed movement to my right. A woman, middle-aged, clearly well-dressed. My name is Beatrice, she said. Can you tell me your name? I shook my head. I could have, but I preferred not to say anything until I was sure it wasn't aliens. When you're ready, she added. Look at this, Lebron said, showing the screen. National Crime Information Publication. Something new. Another body at the Sapphire. Beatrice asked, from what the coroner says, death in the same time frame as Robinson's victim. That's interesting. Found it in the air conditioning pipe, Lebron replied. Went by the smell. Otherwise we wouldn't have found it. Looks like a local geologist, Beatrice suggested, studying the data. Hey, wait, Lebron said worriedly, pointing at the report. Look at this. 2. Beatrice wondered, why weren't we notified? She looked at the document. 2 inmates had escaped from the mental institution for criminals. Not one as they had thought. Lebron was already yelling into the phone, clearly pissed off, and then hung up. The second one was transferred to the prison hospital, he explained. He was handcuffed because of a psychotic episode. The guard thought he was still being held there. The nursing staff thought he was already out. They lost sight of him. Did they plan the escape together? Beatrice asked. No, they were in different parts of the prison. There's been no contact, Lebron replied. Both in isolation for 24 hours. Dick is ticklish. Beatrice read out a line from the report. Jesus, this guy is way more dangerous than Robinson. Serial killer. Schizophrenic. A total psychopath. He's like a ghost. Lebron dialed the number again, but turned pale after speaking. Don't tell me that. He disappeared in the night. Lebron said quietly. It means he's out there somewhere, Lebron finished.